The suitcase I dreamed about sat on top of my wardrobe for 29 years. It was never locked. Never dusty. Every spring, I took it down, opened it, folded a few blouses inside, smiled for a moment, and placed it back where it had always been. I wasn't saving it for a special trip. I was saving myself for a life that never seemed to begin. If you stay with me, I'll tell you why an empty suitcase became the heaviest thing in my house. I'm 84 now, and I've learned that postponing joy can become such a quiet habit that you mistake it for responsibility. I know because I practiced it for nearly 3 decades, one ordinary day at a time. When I was 45, my husband, Richard, promised me something. When we retire, he said while washing dishes one evening, we'll drive across the country. No schedules. No alarm clocks. Just us. I believed him. We bought maps, travel books, a camera, and one beautiful blue suitcase. Every payday, we put a little money into a jar labeled our journey. It felt real. Then life interrupted. My mother became ill. Richard worked overtime. Our son needed help buying his first home. The roof leaked. The car broke down. Every problem seemed temporary. Every dream could surely wait another year. Next summer, Richard would say. I always nodded. The strange thing about next summer is that it arrives very quickly. And disappears even faster. At 58, we finally retired. Friends congratulated us. So, they smiled, "Where are you going first?" Richard laughed. After we finish renovating the kitchen. It seemed sensible. The kitchen took 9 months. Then our first granddaughter was born. We can't leave now, I said. He agreed. At 62, Richard developed a persistent cough. The doctor called it minor. Nothing serious. We postponed the trip again. By 64, the cough had become oxygen tanks. Hospital visits. Quiet conversations outside examination rooms. One rainy November morning, he looked at the blue suitcase. I suppose it can wait 1 more year. I smiled. It isn't going anywhere. Neither of us understood how cruel that sentence would become. Richard died 4 months later. The suitcase remained exactly where he had left it. I couldn't bear to touch it. Every time I looked up at the wardrobe, I saw not luggage, but unfinished promises. People told me to travel anyway. You deserve it. It'll help you heal. I thanked them. Then stayed home. Because the trip had never been about places. It had been about him. Years passed. Neighbors changed. Children became grandparents. My hair turned completely white. The suitcase remained untouched. At 74, I visited my doctor after weeks of unusual fatigue. He studied my test results for a long time. Long enough that I stopped pretending not to worry. Finally, he removed his glasses. Margaret, he said gently, I can't promise how much time this condition will give you. The room felt strangely quiet. I wasn't afraid of dying. I was afraid of recognizing my own life. On the drive home, I stopped at a traffic light. An old couple crossed the street holding hands. They couldn't have been younger than 80. They walked slowly. Very slowly. But they were laughing. I don't know why. Maybe one of them had told a joke. Maybe they were simply happy to still be together. The light turned green. The cars behind me honked. I didn't move. Because for one impossible moment, I saw Richard standing beside them. Not literally, but in memory. Smiling. Waiting. That evening, I dragged the blue suitcase down from the wardrobe. The zipper still worked perfectly. Inside were the maps, the camera, travel brochures from nearly 30 years earlier, and an envelope. I had forgotten it completely. Richard's handwriting covered the front. "Open this when we finally leave." My hands trembled. Inside was one sheet of paper. "If you're reading this, then we finally kept our promise." I smiled through tears. Then continued. "If I'm walking beside you, squeeze my hand." I stopped reading. The room blurred. After a long minute, I continued. "If I'm not, promise me something. Don't punish tomorrow for stealing yesterday. Go anyway." Nothing more. Just those 2 words. Go anyway. I cried harder than I had at his funeral. Because grief had kept me frozen. Love had never asked me to stop living. The next morning, I booked a train ticket. Not across the country. Just 3 hours away to a little coastal town Richard always wanted to visit. Everyone thought I was brave. I wasn't. I nearly canceled 6 different times. When the train finally pulled away from the station, I almost got off before the first stop. Instead, I stayed seated. Outside the window, fields rolled past exactly as they always had. But something inside me had changed. For the first time in years. I wasn't waiting. I spent 4 days by the sea. I watched sunrise alone. Ate dinner without rushing. Read a novel on a bench. I even laughed with strangers over burned pancakes in a tiny cafe. None of it erased my grief. That wasn't the miracle. The miracle was discovering that grief and joy could sit at the same table without destroying each other. Today, 10 years later, that blue suitcase looks older than I do. The corners are scratched. The handle has been repaired twice. There are stickers from places Richard never saw. People sometimes ask if traveling alone makes me sad. I tell them the truth. Sometimes it does. But staying home forever would have made me even sadder. I've learned that the perfect time is the cleverest lie we ever tell ourselves. It always promises to arrive later. It never introduces itself when it finally comes. So we keep waiting. For better health. More money. Less responsibility. A quieter week. A different season. Then one morning we discover that the calendar has been turning pages while we weren't looking. If there's something you've been postponing, not because you truly can't, but because you're waiting for life to become perfectly convenient, ask yourself this. What if today is already the someday your younger self was dreaming about? You don't have to cross an ocean. You don't have to spend a fortune. You simply have to stop believing that life begins after one more obligation. The blue suitcase no longer lives on top of my wardrobe. It's by the front door now. Not because I'm always traveling. Because I never want to mistake waiting for living again. Some promises can survive the years. But only if you finally stand up. And carry the suitcase.